Well, hello. We can finally get round to the last part of the Hoover Vortex-a-Thon series. We've done the V2000. We've had a good look at it. We've looked at the Vortex unit itself. We took it out of the other machine, had a good peek at that. And of course, we made a cyclonic bench vac out of that piece as well, which was salvaged from the scrap V2000 cleaner. But on today's episode, we're going to have a look at the more luxury machine, I suppose you could say, the next model up, and that is the V2001. Well, let's take a look at the V2001. Now, it is very, very similar to the original V2000 machine. So V2000 was launched in '99, and it turns out as well that V2001 was also launched in '99, but slightly later on. And really, the only difference between the two cleaners is the filter, the exhaust filter. I think it says here, yes, it says here on the body, HEPA S-Class filter, which is quite interesting because I always thought that S-Class was a different level of filtration, and it was all quite confusing back in the 90s. There were all these different levels of filter types. You had HEPA, you had S-Class, you had hospital grade. All machines that just said different things as to what the level of filtration was. And this one is slightly mixed up with HEPA and S-Class. I don't think they're the same thing, but who knows? Could be. So that is essentially the only difference. So if I take this filter out and show you, so this, it's almost exactly the same as the original V2000. The interesting thing is how you access the filter. If you recall, on the early V2000, this disc, this sort of lower, I don't know what you'd call it actually. It's not a filter or anything. It's like a vibration stopping disc. It just sort of goes in between the top of the filter mechanism here, the filter housing, and the bin. And the bin sits on it. It's probably to sort of dampen out vibrations, that kind of thing. But yeah, on the later cleaners, you can take this off. It's not stuck to the top. If you recall in the previous video, I had a hell of a time to get this off because you can't get your fingers down onto this latch mechanism here. I've still got no idea why they chose to do it that way. I mean, if people can't see the latch there, then they ain't going to change their filters, are they? Although I suppose in one respect, Hoover said that you never had to change the filters, which was a complete lie. We saw the state of the exhaust filter that came out of the scrapped V2000. It was an absolute mess. So yeah, definitely needed changing. But there we go. So I guess that's why they made that change. So if the filter did need changing, it could be done. So here's the HEPA filter, and it says on the top there, Hoover triple vortex system. So this is a genuine filter. It hasn't been changed. This is not too bad actually. Normally these are absolutely stuffed up. I mean, I have cleaned it. I've cleaned it with the bench vac. If you can see inside there, where the light shines on it, it's not too bad. I've seen a lot worse than this. I don't think this particular cleaner probably had much use. It's not. Yeah, the condition is pretty good. They don't survive particularly well, I must say. Oh, there was something that I need to tell you about this one actually. But yeah, so that's the HEPA filter, and that is basically what distinguishes V2001 from V2000. Everything else is exactly the same. And I'm just going to pop that back in there now. I'm going to try and get this back on. This is always a struggle. You've got to line up the tabs on either side. There we go. Got it. That wasn't too bad. Twist it to the right. Righty-tighty, as they say. Pop in the little disc. Which way up does that go? That way up, I think. It doesn't really matter. And pop the bin back in. There we go and lock it in place. So this one's not too bad. It's quite nice for a V2001. It's got some scratches and marks to it, but you know, it's had a life. Was this 1999? I think it was. Just let me check. Let's have a look at his bum, and we'll check it out. Yeah, so this is the 34th week of 1999, and from memory, this cleaner was exactly the same age as the machine that got scrapped. So that one there, the V2000, is much earlier in 99 than this one was, and the scrap one. So what happens with these is, the problem you find is that these chassis are not particularly strong, and there's an awful lot of weight. You would imagine how top heavy these cleaners are. There's a load of weight here. It's got the flex winder in this one, and it's got the triple vortex system, it's got the hose here, it's got all the tools and everything. So there's a lot of weight on the top, and that weight is obviously wearing on the chassis. In the Pure Power, which was much less top heavy, and bearing in mind that the chassis are shared between Pure Power and Vortex, they are exactly the same, and I've just realised that my repair here hasn't held, it hasn't worked. Look, ding. Okay, so that's what was wrong with this one. Typical. What I had to do was repair this bar that runs across the base here. It's like a support bar, and there's some couple of clips here, a couple of sort of extra extensions to the body moulding, which abut this bar to stop the machine from sort of falling forward. Because if I move the chassis, you see there that it's basically pushing forward on it. So there's a lot of stress on this bar, and because it's a 1990s Hoover, it's not made particularly well. This is a very weak point. Well, probably the weakest point of the entire chassis on this cleaner. Everything else tends to stand up to use, but this bit, no, sadly not. I tried to sort of plastic weld this back in. I used the heat gun and heated pliers to try and sort of melt the plastic back with what was left on the on this side of the chassis here, but it hasn't worked. It hasn't taken. The only thing you can do is replace the entire chassis, and I believe I kept the chassis from the scrapped V2000. So with a bit of work, I can actually swap that over, and I think that one was okay. Actual fact, let me go and grab it, and we will check it out. Well, here's the chassis and hood from the scrapped cleaner, and we can actually check out the date on this one. Yeah, so this one is 9934, so 34th week of 1999. So these two cleaners were made in exactly the same week. Now, unfortunately, this one has suffered exactly the same problem as this one has. This chassis support beam is broken. There we go. And this one's actually much worse than the V2001. It's actually broken the chassis itself rather than just the bar. If I pull it out there, look, you can see there's a bit of plastic here that's come away from the chassis. So yeah, that's no good. Damn. That's a real shame, actually. I thought I'd fix that, but no, obviously not. Obviously not. So back to the drawing board with this V2001. There is one other thing actually worth mentioning, that the chassis are a slightly different colour. This chassis is black, and this one is sort of it's a very, very dark grey. I don't know if you can tell the difference on the camera, but yeah, it's very, very dark grey on the original V2000. So, you know, from a purist point of view, it wouldn't have been any good anyway, because it's not black, and I would have known. Sometimes there's like a bumper strip. You know, Turbo Power had a furniture guard that ran all the way around the chassis, which you could change. So if you were changing a chassis on a turbo, they were all black anyway, and then you could just change the furniture guard. But on Vortex, no, you get different colour chassis. Brilliant, thanks Hoover. But anyway, yeah, so still some work to do on this one, sadly, but I don't think it will stop us from giving it a go. I just want to see I'm just going to put the handle down. Oh, those ratchets are so stiff. No, there's space there, so when you're moving the cleaner back and forth over the carpet, that chassis rail that's broken won't hit the carpet. And that's obviously the last thing you want to do, because if you push it and it pulls it right back, it will snap it off on the other side, so you've got a completely knackered chassis. But it's still fixable. I just got to be careful not to push it forward too far, because that's what's going to cause the damage here. That little peg that pokes down on the opposite side, yeah, it's this side that's broken. Which kind of makes sense when you think about it, because when someone was, I suspect what someone did to break that was to use the hose and take it out here, take it out this side, and sort of pull it around. So they pulled it around this way and pulled the cleaner forward, and then that pressure just snapped the chassis rail. That's my theory anyway. It's interesting that this one does not have a rubber seal on where the hose goes in. I'm not sure this one does either. Let's stick my finger into various holes here. Oh no, there is one. Yes, I can feel it. There's a rubber seal on this one to seal the hose in place, but on this one, oh, there might be actually. I can just about feel it. It's very worn. You can actually see on the. Can you see the wear there on the hose itself? That hose has been taken out many times, and there's actually a ridge worn into it. I can feel a ridge there with my fingernail. That's most unusual. So I would guess that this machine has spent a lot of its life being used on the hose. One thing I did notice about this V2001 in comparison to the V2000 was that there seems to be less suction / airflow on this particular cleaner than there is on V2000. Now that kind of makes sense, but you know, they are exactly the same motor. I think they're 1100 watts. Oh, hang on. Here we go. Are they 1100 watts? Yeah, 1100 to 1150. Max is 1350 watts. Probably wouldn't get up to that point. So 1100 to 1150. Yeah, they are the same motor. And actually, when I took the motor out of this one, it was absolutely caked. I can't remember which one had the broken bearing in it. One had a knackered bottom bearing, which I replaced. No, that's it. Yeah, I took the motors out of both of them. I saved this one's motor. That's right. This was the one with the knackered bottom bearing on it. And this one, it was okay. The bearings were okay, but the motor was just completely choked up with dirt. The fans were absolutely loaded. It sounded terrible. It really sounded terrible. It was so out of balance. And it's one of those times where you've just caught it in time. You've just caught, you know, if that had carried on being used, the motor would have just completely smashed itself to pieces. The bearings would have gone. It would have burnt out. Probably got extremely hot as well because the filters were all choked up. But this HEPA filter, whilst it's nice, you know, because that you get more filtered air, your air is cleaner, it really does impact the performance of the cleaner. Over time, you'd get less and less suction power, less and less airflow, and you'd end up with like a, but your cleaner's screaming away. It would be just screaming. The noise would have been horrendous on it, and that was the point that it kind of got to. So, whilst in many cases, you know, for people who suffer from asthma or breathing issues, it's good to have a HEPA filter. You know, it makes the air cleaner. It's nice. It's good, but they really impact the performance of the vacuum cleaner. I think what we should do now is for me to shut up, and we will take the V2001 into the lounge and give it a go. I'm not sure it'll pick up as much as the V2000, but we can try. Oh, just to note, whilst I'm here, you'll notice that this is a grey flex. So this is the flex from a V2000 machine, because originally the cable had been cut off for the V2001. So I took the cable reel from the scrapped V2000 and put it in this. So I thought that was quite a easy, simple way of getting it working again. So there just definitely isn't as much airflow on this cleaner as there is on the V2000. So let's try and pick up this stuff here with the hose, and I'll give you like a little demonstration as well.